I've never been anywhere that has theme music. This is awesome.
Nice. I was hoping you'd yell "Sui" like you promised.
I couldn't bring myself to do it.
It's okay. You were beholden in awe of Cheddar.
I was. And now, correct me if I'm wrong. Cheddar is one of Jeff Cross's pigs. Doesn't he have two?
He has three.
He has three.
Cheddar's the baby. There is Cheddar, Charles Jr., and Peppa.
Oh, Peppa. Did the kids name Peppa?
I think so, yes. Yes. Charles Jr. is also Junior because Jeff has a child named Charles.
This is fair. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
And Peppa from the, I think it's British kid show, Peppa Pig, based off of
Yeah. My kids watch that show a lot too.
My kids
go ahead.
They've kind of outgrown it, so I'm not complaining.
I remember seeing one episode of it where like there's a wolf there, and there was some joke about like the big bag of wolf and the three little pigs or something like that. Yeah, I thought that was kind of funny, but for the most part, I thought it was pretty dumb. So
there's not a whole lot of great things about that show. That's all right.
Yeah. Anyways, welcome everyone. ZLS 061 with Mike Brocchi. Mike, 61. How are you doing? 61. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I was hoping to crack the top 50, but it's all good.
It's okay. It's okay. You're top 50 in my heart, even if not on my programming. How's that?
I'll take it.
Nice, man. Well, one thing I love to do when I got new people on the show is just talk about your journey through tech. So, how'd you get started, Mike?
In like my professional tech career or just tech in general?
Just in general. Like, how'd you get into it?
When I was like 8 with a Commodore 64?
Yes. I want to hear about that. Let me switch sides again. There we go.
Jumping all around.
There we go.
You look the wrong way. I have experience here from Angular Air.
Yeah, isn't it bogus that they don't let us mirror the camera?
I agree. That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
I wonder, is there a way to set up OBS locally to be essentially my camera?
Yeah.
That I could configure the browser to say, hey, my camera is OBS, and then I could add fun things on top of what's coming. You can do that?
Absolutely. Yep.
Oh.
Brandon, I think, is messing around with some of that stuff too. We're trying to figure out between our streams just different ways of using StreamYard, because StreamYard's so good for having a guest on. Like,
oh, absolutely.
The alternatives are just like they make no sense. But figuring out like, okay, let's still use the StreamYard link, but maybe we can send like a different camera there, or potentially number 2. Maybe we could like do something where we use the browser source and just capture like the div here or the element, send that to OBS, and then we can overlay stuff on top of that. Because that's the other complaint I have, is not having enough like Twitch triggers to go off of. But
see, there's a product idea. Create just a video chat app that all it does is output each person as their own video source that you could then pull into OBS.
Yes.
Or what is it? Streamlabs?
Yeah. Streamlabs is just like a wrapper on top of OBS at the end of the day.
But it provides a lot of niceties. And earlier this year, they came out with a Mac version.
Yes.
I have it installed and yet to open it.
Nice. And I was messing around with some of that stuff. I don't know. I went with I started with OBS, and I was like, okay, I'll try Streamlabs. And then I ended up going back to OBS. I don't quite remember why, but I don't know. It didn't seem like it was giving me all that much more on top of just regular OBS.
Yeah. And that sums up my tech journey.
RIP and GBS.
No, we've kicked the idea around, but
you gonna bring it back?
I don't see why not. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Nice.
I don't know. He's been busy. I've been busy. I don't want to bring it up and compete here with you,
dude.
We're just two guys coding and I don't know, coming up with different topics.
Listen, I am in no way intimidated. I'm not supposed to start. I've got 61 episodes, Mike. I've already got you.
Oh.
After today, no one will want any more.
I don't want to go flexing and say that we've had like double-digit viewers at once.
We've had double-digit viewers at once.
Nice.
One time. Well, no, we got a couple times, but yeah.
I mean, that's how you get like Twitch partnership right there.
Yeah. Well, we're in the affiliate program. That doesn't take much, but
I don't think we reached that.
No, it's not that hard. You probably did, or maybe it's changed. When did y'all last stream?
I think it was around pre-COVID, somewhere around there.
Okay. That's not too far away.
No,
yeah, the getting affiliate, it just needs 3 people average. That's
3 people.
The big one.
Oh, I think we did that. Yeah. Wait, do we each count? Because we would each monitor the chat. I mean, there's 2 right there.
Yeah, there's 2 right there. You gotta get your moms in.
Yeah, I was debating that because she doesn't understand what I do for a living anyway. So, I mean, just to bring her in to confuse her, and then I've got a 2-hour session the next day to explain what I was trying to explain in the stream.
Yeah. No, my mom does not understand most of the stuff we talk about here either, but she still is very, very regular about showing up. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is she here right now? I didn't check the chat.
I don't know. Mom, if you're here, come say hi.
Oh no, you can see who's in the chat, right?
Yeah. You've got. Well, I'd use that the one chat app for that. I don't have it running right now.
Oh, okay. I just go into Twitch and says users in the stream.
Yes, Brandon, that is really my mom. She came by yesterday and she actually helped significantly. Me and Brian were trying to remember the name of MySpace. We were like, "What's that? What was that social network before Facebook?" And
I will say Tom will have been very disappointed in you.
Yeah. A mother's love. Yeah. Mom pretty much single-handedly got me up to affiliate, I think. So thanks, Mom.
There you go. Yeah, that's all.
I don't think if you see Zach's mom in the chat, that's her.
That's her username, Zach's mom?
That's her username.
No.
I set up the account for her though and gave it that name.
That's awesome.
She wasn't quite sure how to use Twitch on her phone. So, and she also gets upset at me because sometimes the Twitch app will start playing someone else because I've hosted someone else, and she'll be like, "I don't want them, I just want you." So
that's funny.
It's kind of funny.
Well, maybe she'll appreciate it if we bring NGBS back and you host us. That hopefully she want to turn us off.
Yeah. Hey, let me know. I'll host y'all. Is your Twitch channel still up? What's the name of it?
NGBS show? No, wait, that was our Twitter account. I think it was just NGBS.
Yes, let's see.
I'd have to look.
Yeah, that's right. Hey, I got more followers than you at the moment, at least. Oh. But that will change now because everyone watching, go subscribe, NGBS. So this is Mike. This stands for NG Angular. B is Brocchi. S is Swarty. Correct?
Sure. It doesn't stand for anything like BS. Doesn't stand for anything else at all. Yes, that's
well, that's a play, right? It's
yes, it's playful, but it's at the same time we're just shooting this stuff.
Yeah,
and just kind of discussing things randomly about Angular. Mostly, we've done other non-Angular topics, so a bunch of RxJS, usually tech, but sometimes we'll talk movies, books, less books. I'm not a reader, but TV shows, anything.
Yeah, and then I wish I read more. I try to read more, but I'm bad at that, man. I'm
a slow reader.
Yeah.
That, to me, it just takes too long, so the story doesn't progress, and I get bored. It's my own fault. So it's nothing a bit wrong with the things I choose to read. It's the pace at which I read them.
Yeah. Have you ever tried audiobooks?
I have, and I do enjoy audiobooks. I
Okay.
had a subscription to Audible for a while, and I held off for a while because I had no way of playing audio in my old car.
Okay.
Because the best time for audiobooks, in my opinion, is commute. And about 5-ish years ago, I started working from home. So I didn't have a commute. So it was kind of, why? So
yeah,
I had it for a while, and then I ditched it. And occasionally I'll listen to something, doing yard work, things around the house or what have you. But that's always harder with kids. So
yeah, I hear you there. How many kids do you have?
I remember your question from about 3 hours ago when you asked me about my tech journey.
Sure. Let's go back to that.
So I, like a lot of people, I dabbled with computers growing up, and Commodore 64 was the thing when I was young. I'm not the spring chicken I used to be. But that's where I got my start, hacking around on that, finding little games and playing games on that. My first real foray into programming, aside from Logo, which kids were doing in school, moving the turtle around and those types of things, was a Fortran class in college that I took.
Okay.
And I wasn't the best student when I was in school. However, the way that the professor taught the class really drove things home for me. We got into class and he yelled at everybody, "Put your notebooks away, clear your desks. You're not allowed to have anything out." And the question immediately came back with, how are we supposed to take notes? He said, "I've got this class completely mapped out. Don't take notes. At the end of every class, I will give you typed up notes of everything that we went over that day. And all you have to do is put it in a 3-ring binder. There'll be hole punched and everything else." And he was like, "I need you to pay attention. I need you to absorb this information, not be busy taking notes."
Nice.
So that's how the class went, and it sunk in and went well. And after that, for other personnel reasons at my college, I ended up switching my major after that year from engineering. It was just a general engineering program to computer science.
Okay.
And actually, he was the professor that left. So he left the engineering department. I was like, I'm going to go and do computer science.
Yeah.
And then from there in school, it was a lot of C++.
Okay.
Very little Visual Basic.
Ah.
Yeah, right?
So, okay. Visual Basic is where I got started. Like, I don't know why, but I was convinced at like 6th, 7th grade, Visual Basic was the way to go. What's that?
I said, I feel old, but continue.
Sorry. I know. But as soon as like Commodore 64, I was like, okay, I don't know what that is, but I know he's older than me now. but yeah. So Visual Basic 6, it was. Me and my friend were like, my friend was convinced that it's what we needed to do to make a game that we could run on Windows, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's make I think it was a turn-based like mystery game kind of thing, like the point and click kind of dealy. So we got into that, and
Can we play now?
What's that?
Can we play it now?
No, I don't think we ever finished it. This is another thing about me and my friend. we had all these cool ideas for projects and never actually finished them. But we're trying to get better at that these days. But yeah, I remember going to Barnes and Noble and like looking for the books and looking at the books with the CDs in them, trying to find one that would like give you enough to run the stuff in it, because we didn't know what we were doing. So
that is fair.
That's pretty much what it was. And then we were like saving up for like the proper Visual Basic with like the whole, what was it, MSDN suite thing?
So Microsoft Developer Network.
Yep. And we had a whole computer lab, I remember, in high school that had the whole MSDN on every computer. And I remember geeking out about that. So we never finished this other game, but I did make a omniscient tic-tac-toe game that I was semi-proud of.
Nice.
But it was just a bunch of like if statements, like nested if statements to heck.
And I'm sure all the tests passed. So
tests, man, I didn't know about tests back then.
I still don't know about tests. at times.
Yeah.
So embarrassing story, which we'll get to later in my tech journey. But my very first conference talk,
yeah,
I tried to run tests after changing some code, and I wasn't prepared for it. I was doing live coding. Live coding first conference talk, not the best idea. But I told the test immediately failed, and I was like, "Nah, we don't care about tests," and just moved on with the rest of my talk.
Yep.
Because I wasn't about to try and debug it in front of 1,500 people.
Yeah.
So, back to VB. So, so you did VB6 in 7th grade. Mm-hmm. VB6 didn't come out until after I was out of college because I started with VB5.
Okay.
A little bit of VB4, I think, in college, and then VB5 out, which then led to web development using, what was it? ASP, classic ASP. Using, what was it? Was it VB script? That's what it was on the server. So that's where my journey started in the web back in 1999.
Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, I'm looking up the release date. I'm trying to make sure I got it right. Yeah, it was definitely Visual Basic 6, the one I was in. So.
Yeah, so it was 99 when I was doing VB5. 21 years ago.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I did some classic ASP for a few years. I remember having conversations for the web development, whether or not we would write our client-side code in JavaScript or VB script. And yeah, very WYSIWYG.
Yeah. I was like, what's this? Wizzy. There you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the first one wasn't right.
What's that?
The first one wasn't right.
This one's right. WYSIWYG.
What CU is what you get.
What you see,
you get.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had some of those conversations. That then went from classic ASP to ASP.NET for a long time.
Yeah.
10 years. And I think then that led into jQuery, which led to Angular, which led to modern Angular. So that Angular converted to AngularJS, then to Angular, and that was pretty much my tech path in terms of technologies I use. A few other things here and there. Wrote a very small Android app at a consulting place. I'm not a Java developer, so that was more just a stumble. Yay, it compiles. Oh, look, something rendered.
Yeah.
Type situation. Nice. I didn't have a dev environment or anything else, so that was interesting. And that, like I said, pretty much Microsoft and then JavaScript, and now TypeScript. Lots of consulting companies along the way, lots of different industries, law firms, manufacturing, medical, hospitals. What else? I don't know.
Were you ever in like a tech specific company? I guess if you were consulting, that's probably tech specific.
Yeah, but in terms of like the clients that I typically work for, I did a lot of work at quite a few different consultant companies along the way. My last company that I worked for was definitely a tech company, SaaS in the HCM, so human capital management. So HR software basically is the way I described it. Gotcha. I worked there for almost 2 years, and now I'm back to consulting. So
nice.
Yeah, I got this really cool guy on a project that I work on. His name's Zach. So totally.
Nice.
And I don't leave out Brandon. Brandon's in chat. Yes. Get to interact with Brandon as well.
Yes. I think that was about the WYSIWYG thing. But yeah, no, Brandon's amazing. And I hear Zach's pretty good at teaching people how to use dialogue APIs. Right?
Hey, it's very helpful because there's a very specific pattern to follow to do dialogue management using NGRX, and that's what it's what you walk me through. I haven't been the biggest advocate or user of NGRX. I see its power, and I don't dislike it. I just don't think it's always the right tool for the job.
What do you feel about RxJS?
I think the idea of defining how data and events flow through an application up front and letting them flow through the quote unquote pipelines of RxJS is an amazing and powerful pattern.
Yeah.
I think it promotes a lot of testability and the idea of abstracting a lot of things so you don't always have to think about when things happen because it can patch that together for you.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of RxJS.
Okay, cool.
And then NGRX for the asynchronous side of that, the way I see it, is that it allows you to write a lot of asynchronous things synchronously. It kind of takes away quite a bit of that. And you just have to think, all right, some things happen over here, some things happen over here, and then my stuff happens.
Yeah.
Right, well, my stuff does.
Brandon puts that shit on everything.
I'm sure you do. I don't. Only because I have a mantra in my dev life that I want to think critically about any dependencies that I pull in to an application. And NGRX is a great pattern. And RxJS. I'm sure that's what you meant, Brandon. But to think critically about things that you pull into the application, whether or not you want the value that you are paying in terms of extra payload from pulling in a library, does that offset the complexity that it's getting rid of or the problem that it's actually solving? And initially, and as far as I've seen, a lot of applications, the only common state that you have in many applications is who's the logged in user? And if that's
your router, right?
Yeah, the router, you can consider that as state, but typically most people don't keep that in terms of their store in a Redux type pattern. But if that's all you're keeping in there, do you really need to pull in a library to manage that when you can manage that in the service? With observables, of course, because you want it to be reactive. But I don't think it's necessary to pull that in if you're not storing quite a few things in as part of state.
Yeah.
But at the same time, then you need to do a whole lot more with RxJS and understand that.
Yes. And that could be kind of a tall order to fill. Like, I feel like learning RxJS, I hit so many false summits where it's like, okay, I get this now. And it's like, oh, nope, there's still hot and cold. You got to understand that still. And I was like, okay. And then, oh, wait, you got to understand different kinds of hot. Like, there's the replay strategy, there's the behavior strategy, there's the not either of those strategy, So
and then even just the simple ideas of, oh wait, and this goes earlier in the process of learning, is the idea of, all right, I have an observable, but it returns an observable. How do I even begin to handle that, and what does that even look like?
Yeah. No, I think RxJS as a library, like Brandon uses the tap console log strategy.
I didn't know there was a different strategy.
That's a solid strategy, Brandon. Nice.
Speaking of Brandon and NGBS, we had to bring Brandon in to be able to help us solve a testing issue when we had a stream where we were investigating marble diagrams.
Nice.
Marble diagrams. This is great.
Dude.
We could totally do that.
Yeah.
And then we were like, these ain't working. We doing something wrong.
Yeah. Well, were you using the test scheduler, or was this another marble library?
This was just even initially setting things up.
Okay.
Because the way that we'd work the format for our streams was, let's talk about marble diagrams.
Yeah. There we go.
No planning. Let's figure it out on stream, because there's a lot of value in seeing the process of how do you solve problems.
Yeah. So
that's what we do. And
dude, so before I started doing all the guest episodes, I did a lot of live coding stuff just by myself. I tried that. Like, I was like, okay, today we're gonna learn React. There we go. We'll make something in React today. Yeah. And I did that, and then I got to stuff that I just like didn't really understand. And most of all my streams I try to keep to like an hour, right? So I was like, I would have some streams that were just like me going through API docs for an hour and like trying to keep it on screen and all this stuff. And I don't know. That's not fun. I think maybe if you had a partner or like pair programming for it, that might be a lot better. And maybe if one of you, maybe all it needs is one of you needs to at least know kind of what you're talking about. Because I would just like grab completely new stuff down and be like, I want to learn this. So that was a bad idea, I think.
That's not a bad idea.
Well, it did do. Those episodes did not do very well. Let's just say that.
Well, hopefully this episode does well.
Yeah.
People can understand my tech journey going back to Commodore 64s, even though I can't talk.
Yeah. Well, let's stick with that because
stop. I just looked. Your mom's here. Hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Yes.
Mom, if you're there, type something to say hi. Everyone's very excited that my mom watches my show and that your username is Zach's mom.
I love the support.
Yeah. There it is. Hey, Mom.
Did you design her profile picture too?
No, I think that's the default one, right? Yeah. You were making a joke, Mike.
I was. I do that occasionally. Because if you don't think things are fun, then you don't keep doing them.
Yeah. Oh, that's a huge thing, man. That's like, I feel like that gets overlooked so much when we think about like projects like this. It's just like the people involved, are they enjoying themselves? So.
Absolutely.
Hey, Caitlin. Nice to see you. That's Caitlin from Narwhal there. So.
Oh, hi, Caitlin. I haven't talked to you in 4 hours, 3 hours, something like that.
2 hours?
Math.
Times of math is hard.
Yeah.
Times of math is real hard.
I'm going to be that person that when my kids come and ask me help for math, I'm just going to start writing programs for them. How do you do this division? I don't know. I just write an app to do it.
Yeah. We're homeschooling right now, and we're teaching them our 10 and our 12-year-old algebra. So that's fun.
Now, when you say homeschooling, are you talking about virtual school, or are you talking you're the teacher? We
started doing virtual school, and so I have 6 kids, Mike. 5 of them are in the house right now. That was not going to work. We went to homeschool because it was easier for us. Like we could do it on our own schedule instead of like having 3 hours of the day where we need to be sitting next to the preschooler so she could use Zoom. So
I have 2. So 2 kids, 2 parents. That matches up.
Yeah.
As soon as you add another kid, you're in trouble because you're outnumbered.
Yeah.
You're onto a second hand. That's some next level stuff there. More power to you and your family.
Doing that. We did virtual for about a week, and then we were just like, no, can't keep it going. Let's go. Let's try our own thing. And we've been enjoying it so far. My wife does all the heavy lifting, so I shouldn't say we. It's pretty much almost just about all her. But I do enjoy with my one son is interested in computer programming, so we do a little bit of stuff together. So
that's cool. Neat. My oldest is 10, and it really enjoys Scratch.
Yes, that's the one where you drag the things around, right?
Yeah, so it's a lot of visual building blocks type development.
Yeah.
So that's
I was very impressed with that tool because it's like everything they need to think about in terms of coding, but none of the weird syntax or typing that I think would easily put them off. So
absolutely, and also the typing too, right? Because while kids are very proficient on technology now, typing is still going to be a struggle until they get a little bit older and get more practice with it. So to be able to get those thoughts out quickly as well. And have that immediate impact of seeing things happen in real time.
Yeah, for sure.
First, the Webpack build and live reload happen. That takes time. It's way too long for kids' attention span.
All right, Luke. Today's lesson is Webpack. Step 1: never touch it. Just use Angular and let it build stuff for you. The end.
So that's where my tech journey really accelerated was because of Webpack.
Okay.
And the idea of doing development. Do you remember when Angular 2, the version 2, like as it was coming out, like was pre alpha and what have you, how many different seed applications were out there.
Yeah, I came in right as Angular 2 dropped. That was when I entered in like web development.
Okay.
So.
I forgot I'm old. So what it was going on is that everybody had all these seed applications, and it was pretty much System.js, exactly.
Yeah.
But it was mostly like seed projects. Like, I don't want to have to teach you how to do this. Here's a project. Start here, clone this, delete the .git folder, and do a git in it. that's how project started.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to figure out how to build it, and then as it scaled, how does that even look? And that's how I got involved with the Angular CLI.
Nice.
Was because I was like, C projects stink.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to think about a build process. If something robust were to come up that would take all that away, and I basically say, I'm done coding, build it now. Do that for me. Please take away my pain.
Yeah. That's
exactly what it does. So. And then you don't have to worry about keeping up with best practices. Did you know Webpack 5's out? You may have heard, but
no, I've heard because I do some stuff with the NX team. Just I'm on the content team, so I know with Angular 11 they're going to Webpack 5. So
I think it's opt-in, but yeah, I think
okay.
Yes. So you're aware, but I'd say 90%, 80% of Angular developers.
I would prefer if I were unaware. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I ejected Webpack from my brain when this. Yep. See, I was fortunate enough to never even need to know about it because it's just like there. So actually, Git was not a given at my company when I started in this stuff. Like we were using, we said we were using SVN, but really we were just using like a file system with like copies of the project onto this lab computer. So. But going to Git was really fun.
I mean, rollbacks are a pain, but we've got version control.
Yeah, there you go.
Through backup, but all right. Well,
going to Git and having Git just right there, already installed or already set up for you as soon as you run ng new. That was spiff. I like that.
Me as well. I got to meet a lot of people as part of doing that work, so I was rather excited.
Is this before or after your first ngconf talk?
Yes. So there were two reasons I got involved with the Angular CLI. One was I love the abstractions and I love the idea of the project. Yeah. And I got involved for that. And well, I guess it's three. One was I had gotten a lot of advancements in my career from AngularJS.
Okay.
I had one job that I couldn't get them to give me requirements, but they wanted me to still look busy.
Yes.
So I'd set up an entire backend API server database with all the real-time deployment or automated deployment, set up Angular, set up auth, and then I didn't have any business requirements. So I pretty much sat idle. So I went on Stack Overflow and answered questions for pretty much 3 months straight. And then I got to the point of, hey, I don't know the answer. I'm going to go read the source code. But anyway, that knowledge landed me one or two jobs and advancements and more money. I was like, all right, I should contribute back. I should actually do something. And around that time, I had done two things. One, I had gone to ngconf as an attendee at the second one.
Okay.
Said, I want to go back. My company's not going to pay for me to go back, so I need to go as a speaker. So what can I do for that, to be a speaker?
Yeah.
So part of it was to get involved with the project that ended up being the Angular CLI. I had worked with Ben Lesh before in Pittsburgh. We worked at the same place. And he said, hey, I was talking to Igor, and he said they were looking for people to contribute here. I was like, okay.
Nice. And Ben's on the Angular team at this point, right?
No.
Oh.
He was working at Netflix at the time.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But he had become friendly with a few people on the Angular team, being out there and getting started with RxJS and what have you at the time. And I just started contributing to that. I was like, oh, I'll start contributing just here and there and pull requests. Then that progressed to, hey, you want to come to our weekly meetings? And then that became, nice. Hey, we'll assign stuff to you. And then I brought up to Igor and submitted a talk that I wanted to do a talk on the CLI. And And I was just going to talk about it and do slides. And about 2 weeks before the first NGConf, which I guess would have been the third one, I was reviewing my slides with Igor, and he's like, you need to show this. It needs to work. You need to do a demo. I was
live
like,
code.
I was like, I've never given a conference talk, and you need me to demo this? He was like, yep. So that ended up turning into that. That's when I told people that they didn't need to test their applications. It's because I was demoing NG tests. I was like, my test fails, but we're moving on.
Solid advice, in my opinion.
But I got through it, and that ended up being I live coded essentially Tour of Heroes in my first 20-minute talk. So
awesome, man. 20 minutes. It's pretty intense.
There was a lot of code snippets, and then I was generating a lot of code with the CLI too. So that definitely helped.
Yeah. Well, I imagine that would make sense that you'd need to demo it, because otherwise it sounds like you're promising a lot and people don't realize how easy it really is. So
yeah. So that's pretty much where my journey into Angular really started, was there. And then it started there with first talk at NGConf, and recently I joined HeroDevs.
Nice.
And I now am a partner at HeroDevs with Frosty and Joe. So
very cool, man.
It's already come full circle, so I can't be disappointed or upset with that. So happy to be part of the team there.
Yeah, man. Huge congrats. That sounds like an awesome position. So
I'm enjoying it so far. Like I said, I get to work with you on a project too, so that's great.
Yeah, there you go. Ben, this is Ben from Narwhal. Hey, man.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah. Brocco, you're pretty badass, man.
Live coding, there was. If my editor didn't have snippets, I wouldn't have gotten through it.
Yeah.
There's no way I would have gotten through that.
Here, what you need to do, this is a trick I learned from Jeff Delaney. You just got to write it all out first, and then just keep hitting, erase it all, and then just keep hitting undo. Let it come back in. It's
that would be great if you could rely on your machine not crashing.
Yeah. Well, I guess if you're writing schematics, that doesn't really work, right?
Oh, true. That was
because you're making new files. You can't undo removing that file. The weird thing about that, though, is like reverse engineering. In which order do I need to delete the slide in? It's just a little bit of a mind teaser, but it's not too bad. It ends up looking really good for videos and stuff. So
that is true. I ended up creating a whole bunch of snippets for it. And the big takeaway I learned from that, if you're going to use snippets to do a live talk, it's good to save those. So definitely prefix them with the name of the talk in some way, shape, or form.
Oh, because were they plaguing you for months afterwards?
No, it was a matter of trying to find them to remove them, because I didn't use them a whole lot after the fact, and things got muddied, and so definitely prefix those, because then and then also ordering too, to know which one to go there, because then you have 30 different snippets. How do you know which one do you actually need in a given section? So but the snippets make it repeatable and practicable.
Nice.
Yeah, I dig it. And then schematics are fun too. I love schematics.
Yeah, I've written some schematics for some projects. It's pretty neat. It's definitely a different take on something kind of familiar, right? Like generating out some initial code based on some parameters. So unfortunately, the syntax, the template syntax, is super similar. Yeah, hearts love to schematics. The syntax is super similar to JSP, which kind of gave me a little PTSD. But I didn't do much in JSP, but enough to know I didn't like it. So learning ASTs is a whole other thing.
Yeah, that complicates things quite a bit. It's not a schematics specific issue. It's just a matter of trying to discern, if you're modifying a file, where do you modify it? Yeah, that was definitely a rabbit hole because initially the templating syntax was an engine that came from the Ember CLI. Okay. Because originally, technically, their Angular CLI was an extension to the Ember CLI with its own command.
Oh, cool. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's where everything started. because it was extensible and what have you, and that it was based off of that. And I mean, it's all since been replaced and refactored out. Especially the Schematics was one of the last holdovers for the templating engine, and Schematics kind of is I think it was the last thing to be pulled out that allowed to remove the dependency of Ember.
Gotcha.
But yeah, looking back on that, because I wrote the schematics for the Angular CLI, especially the initial ones, I'm sure they've been tweaked in it and what have you since then.
You wrote them?
Yeah.
I feel like I have so much to thank you for right now because they're so good. It's so cool to have that. So thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. I got paid, so it really wasn't like me just saying, "Hey, here you go." But the interesting thing, looking back on it, though, is does this mean that I've written more Angular code than anyone?
Kind of.
Because if I wrote the code that generates the code, does that make that true? I don't know. But I had that thought one day, and I was like, "Wow, how we get paid in lines of code."
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom. Here's 8,000 lines of code. You're welcome.
Yeah, Schematics seem like a pretty sweet deal for that if you can get that into a contract.
Right. But if you think about like the idea of not having to worry about the idea of, all right, I'm creating a component. Oh, how many times did you create a component before the CLI that didn't declare it in the module? Why isn't this showing? What do you mean you don't know what that is? To take those types of extra knowledge of what's going on. I mean, you see it in a pull request when you look at that, the commit, the diff, but most people forget about that. The idea, I created a component, I need to declare it as part of a module.
Yeah. Well, just like setting up a spec file for a component. I tried to do that without like just from memory, and I was like, something test bed.
I don't remember that at all.
It made you like, I don't know. It really made you take it for granted. So
yeah, especially with the recent performance benefits coming out of testbed as well, because there would be times where I would just write a test that used the component class file and hope that the template worked, because I was not going to take the extra time to run through and actually instantiate the component in code. So
yeah, especially when you don't need the test bed at all. That too.
There's different schools of thought on that. I've kind of come back to it because it's helpful, because then you're testing out all the DI, you mock things out, and that gets injected in. Or you very similarly through Angular's DI process. Not that you really need to unit test your DI or Angular's DI as part of your tests.
I know, testbed haters, dude. It's for me. Here's my big thing with unit tests in general. Like, it's not. I don't think it's specific to the testbed. Maybe it's a little bit of that, because the mindset you end up having to take on when you're writing unit tests, like via Jest or via Karma. You're thinking of your stuff as an API instead of as something someone experiences, like I've got to be thinking the things that have to be fresh in my mind is, what do I have to make sure is injected? How can I mock those things out? How is this all going to wire up? And then you end up writing some code based on that. And to me, that's all that stuff seems kind of like implementation detail to me. So if I had my way, I'd be writing a lot of Cypress tests for everything, and investing more time into figuring out how to stand up modules by themselves. So having an app that would only use the one module you care about, and then just run Cypress against that. I'd be interested in investing more energy into that and figuring out how to get that to work. Because when you write those kinds of tests, I feel like you're thinking as the user thinks about it.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the whole testbed thing. That sure, you can test everything within your component of I've got an array of these different list items, but am I rendering them properly, or is everything showing that should be showing in the template? To be able to execute and run the template as well, and not just the code supporting the component, is very helpful.
Yeah. Well, so you can kind of do that in the unit test too, right? Like you can look at the DOM elements, but the API for that just feels kind of gross. I don't know.
Yeah, but essentially, you're just creating an instance of the component class, is what I'm saying, without the test bed.
Okay.
If you think about it, the template is a class that is using the public properties of the component class. If you think of them as two different classes, one of them just happens to be DOM.
Gotcha.
That's why all the properties you need within your component need to be public.
Gotcha. Yeah. Because that's the only way that the template has scope to them, right?
Exactly.
Cool.
You don't want to test private things, so you need to make that's test strategy. That's very different.
Well, there's like a whole thing now, right? Because there's those private variables aren't really private, but in the new stuff, you can have actual private stuff on classes.
Oh, that's right. What is it? Double
it's
under?
Like a star, I forget. I
forget what the syntax is, but yes, what is it? ECMAScript actually supports privates in classes,
like true privates.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that for when you call something private in a TypeScript class, you can still get to it. Like you can still see it.
You can, not through TypeScript, but
yeah. I mean, I guess you can through TypeScript, but you got to hack around
a string accessor or something like that to get away from it a little bit.
Or like cast it as an any and then get at that string property. Yeah. So.
Yeah, but it's I don't know, like hidden almost, or difficult to get to that. So it would should have been caught by a code review, basically, if you're doing something like that.
Yeah. I know a lot of tests that'll go into the private stuff. And like, yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. Probably shouldn't even do this, but I feel a little less bad about like calling a private method. Maybe a little less bad. Like you still shouldn't do it, I think. But it's one thing like calling a private method versus like testing that some private thing is set, right? So I don't know.
Both are bad. Try not to give good advice, Zach. Give bad advice.
I'll explain all the hacky ways you can do all this bad stuff. That's the way my mind works, though. It's like I feel like I'm in this competition to impress myself with different feats I can accomplish that are really worthless. Like hey, sometimes I wonder that about RxJS. Like every now and then, I don't think it's actually true, but it's like this weird like imposter syndrome about. Am I really doing anything with this, or I'm just chasing my tail and making things super complicated? Like there is an element, I think, of gatekeeping when it comes to some of these things, like RxJS, where there's just such a big learning commitment involved to using it. Yeah. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Mike? I'm talking too much.
No, you're fine. It reminds me of the idea of, hey, look, I can get 100% test coverage by executing all the code without writing a single expect statement. I'm not going to validate anything, but hey, boss, look, I got 100% test coverage. Brandon, you just did. Oh, no. Zach, you're muted.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Am I back?
Yeah, you're
Sometimes
good.
That happens, man.
Your mom muted you. That's what happened.
My mom muted me. No, she's going to message me now and be like, what's this about you cheating? So.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, man.
I kind of don't agree with the idea of gaming the system.
Yeah. Oh, no. Mom, don't listen to Brandon.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, wait. This is Dad, I'm pretty sure. Philoso Dad KDR. So KDR is my dad's initials, Keith DeRose. And he's a philosophy professor. Oh. So I think Dad just got a Twitch account. And look, his profile picture matches Mom's.
Very nice. They look like a happy couple.
when you've been married so long, you start looking like brother and sister. I think that's what's going on here. No, thanks, Dad. Thanks, Dad, for stopping by. But yeah, sorry. Where were you going with this, Mike? I forget what we were talking about.
If you try and game the system and try and we're at a point that you need to try and access a private thing, or you need to be able to, or you think you need to, then maybe it's time to take a step back and say, hey, how could I change this so that the API better supports what I need? And it's not that you should change it for a test, but maybe that if you, I don't know how to put this.
Yeah.
It's a strong indicator that you could be doing things a better way.
Yeah. Well, like if I'm thinking about like the different events I want to test, sometimes they're going to be triggered by the DOM, right? Like sometimes you want to check the user just clicked on this DOM element. So that's one thing you'd have to mock out. And I don't think that one's bad at all. Like that one makes complete sense.
Right, but that's public, right? Yeah. If the DOM needs access, it needs to be a public method.
Yeah. Well, so say you had a component set up and your click event is going to a method on your component. The way I try to set my unit tests up is, even though I know that's going to hit the method on my component, I still try to click the element in the DOM rather than just call the method. What are your thoughts on that?
It depends on what you're trying to accomplish with the test. If you're trying to do a more of like an integration test, which that's kind of what that is, dealing with two classes, the template class and the component class.
Right.
Then yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. But at the same time, I don't think I'd take it away or like take away the validity of it if somebody just called that event on the component.
Yeah.
But yeah, full cycle, I think it would be best to trigger the click event because then you get the associated event or like the DOM event.
Yeah.
So
it feels like a more complete test. Like it sets me more like when I'm in Cypress, of course, I'm just going to call click on the element, right?
Yeah.
Like because I don't have scope to the rest of it. And I kind of like it that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, like most of the events, it seems like sometimes you're going to be clicking stuff, but most of the time it feels like what you're setting up in your test is like jerry rigging this weird thing with all of your mock injected things or mocking out the things that are injected to like make sure it happens the way you want it to. And that always feels wrong. Because like, I don't know, I feel like it gives you false senses of confidence because it's the way you mock is not necessarily the way those things are actually implemented. And you have a way of doing that already just by like running your app and making sure all those things are actually running. So I don't know.
I think that the way that you explain doing that, sure, it may feel wrong that you're mocking things and you're not fully testing something, but then you're getting away from the idea of what those tests are, or they're unit tests, and you're testing that particular component that it's doing what it should be doing.
Sure.
And not necessarily that the application is functioning. And that just means that the testing approach for an application needs, or in my opinion, needs that both. You need to be able to test the micro pieces, the micro units, whatever, of each individual component. But at the same time, you need to also test that they work together. You've seen all the memes all over the internet.
The two doors that won't open together.
Exactly. Yeah. Wait a minute. That's not right when you put them together. Sure. Look, window 1 opens. Look, window 2 opens. That's great. But they collide.
Yeah. Exactly.
So in practice, not good. But
yeah. But I don't know.
The whole testing strategy needs to account for both.
Yeah. But when you get to like something like a form, for example, if you have some custom form, one thing I like to do is just like I have my module that has the form. I spin up a new app. I'm using NX. I'm always in an NX world, so I just make a new app, and when I create that app, the Cypress stuff gets generated with it. I just import the one module with those components I'm exposing, and I set up some routing, some quick routing, Jerry, rig it up real quick, and then go to a page per component, and then test everything out in that component. So it's like, it feels like it's still in isolation. Like there's nothing else. These are pure components. There's nothing else happening in there. But
right.
That feels like a much better. I mean, there's quite a bit of setup in that sometimes, but
sure. And
it feels
then
like a better experience when I think about the test I'm writing. So,
are you keeping those applications that you create, those little test applications?
Like, how do you mean keeping them?
So if you create an application to test your library's components, to essentially have a driver for them that's not necessarily the released application, but an app just to allow you to run, do you then commit those tests or that application as part of your pull request, or do you end up deleting it?
Well, I do this always on my own, on my side project stuff. So I'm not like pull requesting, but I do commit it in like to the repo, and then I just when I'm coding, in this world, I feel like I actually get to the point where I'm actually doing test-driven development, where I actually write the test first, and I use it to figure out, okay, where am I at in implementing this? When I can properly do this, that's where I get closest to that, I think. And then, when I'm coding on my my component, all I'm doing is like serving in Cypress, like just letting the test thing run, and every time I hit save, I'll just rerun the end-to-end tests and make sure, okay, we didn't go backwards, right? And what step am I not passing now? So it's so instantaneous. Like it runs just as fast as a unit test when you do that. So
yeah, I think the main point that people, organizations, teams, whoever need to focus more on is the repeatability and therefore the automation of tests. I think that a lot of places that I've worked and have talked to get into the idea of, oh, well, this is our regression area, or not a regression, but basically a code freeze where, hey, we need to test to make sure this release can go out. And I have no problem with that type of validation, but you need to have more assurances if you can automate that, that you're always in a state that you could be deployed, that it's always ready to go out the door, or that it's not ready to go out the door through some sort of automation. If everything's automated, then you can have that idea of a CI/CD, continuous integration. Not only that, but also continuous delivery. If you can write those assurances to be automated, that's huge. That gives so much power to an organization.
Absolutely.
And I don't think enough places put value in that.
Yeah.
This has become like a very test oriented conversation, which isn't a bad thing. We wouldn't send an agenda, and that's fine. But yeah, I think it's very important. Nobody likes writing tests. Well, sorry, some people might like writing tests.
I actually really enjoy writing tests and unit tests for RxJS stuff. That's using the marble diagrams. That feels really good because I feel like RxJS is a piece I always need to test. Because even though I feel like I've got a really good grasp on it, I always want to make sure if I'm ever doing like some switch map or concat mapping or with latest forms or something in there, some combination of those things may not be working the way I think it is. And the marble diagrams will very like succinctly, I feel like, test those out for me. So
yeah, those are the parts of the application that absolutely need to be unit tested, or the core required logic within an application should be unit tested. But I remember I've worked places that, like I mentioned, I did a lot of .NET and C# where people are like, oh, you don't have 100% test coverage, because that was a metric that places wanted to try to hit. But it came to the point that they had these automated properties, getters and setters. So if you put a property name in with the open and closed parentheses and get semicolon, set semicolon, where all the getters and setters are fully written for you for a property, they wanted you to test that.
Yeah.
I'm like,
dude,
that doesn't make sense.
I remember seeing a bunch of NGRX like tests at some point that were testing like the action classes that you would create before the new version. You'd make a new class for each action, and like it would just be the test would just be like calling new on that new on the new class and making sure it like had the thing set in it that you just passed into new. So 100% test coverage though.
I did that last week.
Oh, you did that? No. Did you enjoy it?
No.
Wait, are you using, is this with NGRX 8 plus?
Yeah, I create action. Yeah.
Okay. Well, at least there's that. At least there's that.
Yeah, there was a spec file for it, and I was like, I created action. I'm going to have the spec. And somebody took the step back and said, don't really need these spec files. Don't need to test those actions that are there. Like, you're probably right.
Yeah.
I tell you what, next PR I create, I'll create a commit in there to get rid of it because it's
hopefully hopefully you'll still get 100% test coverage though. Here's Brandon, core NGRX team, never written a single test for an action. So good, good deal. Well, so you'll hit those as long as you call dispatch on them somewhere, because as long as you're calling them, the action creator somewhere, you'll hit it. So
I wonder if there's a way. I guess it would have to be like a Cypress level test for cycling through the application to ensure that the action's being used. But I don't think there's a good way to write that as a unit test.
Yeah.
So the idea of a unit test for that is fine. But if you should. I wonder if there's a way to decide whether or not that code is actually being used somewhere.
Probably. I don't know. I'm gonna get like into salty or black sheep territory with NGRX stuff here because I don't like. There's a reason you don't get. Yep. So, but yeah, I don't. To me, like when you do that thing where you export the namespace with all the actions on it, I'm like, no, just export the actions themselves and then just like give them some unique-ish name. Like you're giving them unique strings anyways. I don't like the namespace thing about that.
Yeah.
So, and you also lose, like, at least if you're in VS Code, if you click on it and you go to find all references, you won't find it if you're using that namespace method. So
but you can use the import star as when you're consuming it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Like namespace in them essentially when you do that. Right in your imports. So, and the other thing I tend to do with NGRX is I don't keep actions and selectors with effects, like even in the same module as effects and reducers.
How do you organize them?
So the way I'll do it, like on projects where I can make that executive decision, I will have a sort of like a public bucket that I'll put all of the actions for the app into, all the selectors for the app into, and that sits down there at the bottom, right, as a module or a library at the bottom. I'm thinking of like the NX dependency graph here, right? Okay. So there's that thing, and then anything can look at those, right? Anything can look at those, any component, any other module that's like looking at effects. I know that this is not kosher. This is not the way to do it, but I think it works a lot better. But it is consider it, but take Brandon's blasphemy comment seriously. This is not the way I think NGRX would advise you do it, but it works for me. And this makes it so like you can do things where you don't care. Like you can make your actual state module, which is where your effect and your reducer will go, and where you actually like you import that module into like your app module or to wherever in the dependency tree you need it to be.
It's a level of abstraction, and basically the only way you need to interact with me is to call an action, or to listen through a selector.
Yeah, never need to care about where that node is in terms of the dependency. Anything can call it because anything can be dependent on it. Yeah, by design. So that's that's the way I roll.
It's called encapsulation. There's different ways to do it and what have you, but just expose what you need, and that's about it.
Yeah, but
actually, if you take that down to the micro level, same thing with a component class. Private what you need, public what you or private what you don't need, public what you do need.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
I
don't know. When you keep those public and the private things in the same lib, though, you end up having to figure out, wait, where in the dependency tree does this one belong? Does this one depend on this one, or is it the other way around? And how do we manage that if like this one needs to care about this one's actions, but this one also needs to care about this one's actions?
Shared. At foo/shared. Everything lives in there.
Sounds good to me. No, I'm essentially doing that, but only with the actions and the selectors, right?
Yes.
That's pretty much what I'm doing. But I'm keeping the reducer and the effects themselves separate. So at least those can have their own thing.
You're keeping them in a separate library?
Yeah. So the
hold on, but then all your effects and reducers are in their own library.
So if there's a feature, a state feature, so like user, I would keep the reducer and the effect for user inside the user state module, I'd probably call it. And if I had some other thing like, I don't know, players, that would be a separate slice of state. Its reducer and effects would go into that module over there. And if you think of these two things as nodes up top here, they would depend on one bucket down here with the actions that's going to care about and the selectors that's going to care about, and also the other way around for this node over here. That makes sense?
Yeah. But then you have to, where's the state defined then?
It's there in the common ones too.
Okay.
Because they'll need to know about that too for the selectors,
Yeah.
So
that's why I was wondering, because you need to expose something out of there to be able to get the state for the selectors.
No, anything that needs to be exposed is in the bottom bucket down there. So
gotcha.
It works pretty well for me to the point where I don't have to worry about any of the circular stuff. But
so it almost sounds like a facade.
No, it's not. That's a whole other thing. I've gone back and forth so many times. Brandon. What's that?
This is how I trigger Brandon.
Oh no. Brandon's been very nice to me. Yeah. Like, don't turn me against me. Oh no, we've activated sarcastic Brandon.
No, but okay, we can get around this. Instead of calling them facades, we can pronounce it facades.
Facades. There we go. I think the facades actually has like the thing on the bottom. They're the best. They are the best.
Yeah. No,
I've gone back and forth on facades so many times. I don't think I wouldn't use them now. I've toyed around before, Mike, with this idea of like a component adapter, right? Where it's like the one thing you'd ever inject into a component, and it would just itself be a service.
Yeah.
That would just like say anything this component needs to do that's not like visual, or it goes in here, and you'd inject everything else into there. So that's the only thing you would inject to other stuff. But this is way too many files. Like there's already too many files in Angular, I feel like. So adding another two, like a new service and a new service spec file every time you make a component seems like too much. But
although I will admit, I have created services that are just there to facilitate a component to make it more testable.
Okay. That's a big part of my reasoning there was like, okay, we can now unit test the component for just visual crap and like jerry rig anything we want to on that.
Yeah.
And then the service, that's where we can actually like that at that point it's really an API for it. Like even more so than just the component TypeScript code itself. What's the difference between a service and a facade? So in my mind, the facade, I was actually looking at some code that Brandon had wrote inside of a facade today. And this made me laugh because there's a bunch of methods on this facade that was like mapping to a different action. And then, so I see like 5 of these, and then I see Brandon come in at the bottom and just add a dispatch method onto the facade. It just takes any action and dispatches it. And I thought that was perfect. But yeah, the difference between a service and facade, I don't know. I think a service is anything injectable, right? So
yeah. I would agree with that assessment. I was looking for a picture that I had put together. So actually I did find it. That's so wrong of me. I should never have done this. So I was kind of against NGRX for a while. And not that I was against NGRX. I think it's a great tool, but I think that it got overused. That I think it's too commonplace in a lot of places, and you don't necessarily need. Again, the whole idea I talked about before about thinking critically.
Yeah.
And I don't know why I was thinking about it, but basically I created a meme that was the idea of Fred from Scooby-Doo with his hand on a mask on a guy that they had just caught, and it says store.dispatch. And he pulls off the mask, and it then changes to $rootscope.$broadcast.
Nice.
Have the similarities there, and it was wrong, and I know that, and I don't have, like I said, I don't have issues with NGRX. I just think it just gets overused. That's all.
Yeah. I really like it. I don't know. It seems to make a lot of stuff simple to me. Like you have to pay a little bit of an initial like investment into understanding Redux. How do these things all come together and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when you look at the code you actually have to write for NGRX, it's like action creators, just an object, reducers, pure function, takes a current state and an action returns a new state. Pretty simple. And then selectors, just a function that takes the state and returns some piece of that. So I don't know. That seems super simple to me. NGRX got too mainstream. Maybe. Yeah. I like the fact that it's mainstream though, because like that makes it so that as contractors we can kind of drop into some place and know what we're doing. So
you get a lot of that out of Angular in general.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think that's a good baseline. What NGRX does on top of that is it increases the baseline. But like we talked about earlier, that you get to do a whole lot of really interesting asynchronous things without having to think too much about the asynchronicity of it.
Yes.
Like I write a reducer. All right. Well, I don't care when it happens, but when this happens, this is the change that I need to make.
Yeah.
Just the fun.
Exactly. Like, well, just be enabling people to write those disjointed pieces. Like each one of those is just like a function, right? Like just write this one function. Don't even care where it happens. Just make sure this one function's doing what it needs to do. Like that helps with testability and all that stuff. So
this is something that I haven't understood the reasoning why, and I'm not necessarily questioning it.
Yeah.
But selectors, as a functionality standpoint, they are just functions that essentially are a way of calling map. Now, I understand there's more in there in terms of memoization and what have you and persistence, but that's essentially what they are, is a way of basically the predicate being passed into an RxJS map.
Yeah. Not quite a predicate, a callback maybe. I don't know. Whatever that is. Whatever that is.
Yeah. Well, it's a function. It's a parameter.
Yeah. I think predicate is like something that takes one parameter and returns a Boolean, but I'm not sure about that actually.
I remember using the term a lot more when I did .NET, but
yeah,
I haven't touched .NET in a long time.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah. I've never touched .NET. Well, I did once in a summer internship, but I don't remember much from that.
I like .NET. I think there's I think it's a really strong language. The stuff they've done over the past few years, open sourcing it, run on any platform, is rather impressive, and kudos to that team.
Yeah. Have you looked at Blazor at all?
I haven't. I actually just read an article. I skimmed an article, but the way that it was written was poor. It was comparing Blazor to React and Angular, but it was pretty much an article that was pretty much saying use Blazor, JavaScript sucks, use Blazor.
Nice.
Like,
yeah,
I don't like the way this is written, and it's
yeah.
not. I've been doing a lot of Angular, or I have anything against React or Blazor or anything else. It was just the tone of the email. And any of those articles, and I don't care who wrote it, any of those articles where it's A versus B, more than likely A and B are both completely valid solutions to a problem.
Yeah. I feel like any versus thing is like a clickbait crap, like Thunderdome, Thunderdome time, who gets out? But
going back to the beginning of the show, title idea, ZLS 061, Zach versus Brocchi.
Zach versus Brocchi. That's kind of how all the promo images ended up looking, right? Because it's got us like facing off against each other. Right, I'm looking the wrong way. There we go. Stupid mirror.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude. Hey, this was awesome. It was fun talking about all this stuff. I feel like we got a lot more we could talk about too. But
yeah.
You got a hard stop? You want to wrap this up? How you feeling?
Yeah, my youngest daughter just got home, so
awesome, man.
A bit of family time, and
we talked about double digits. We're in the double digits right now. Look at that. Everyone came out for Brocco.
I like it.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you, Brocchi.
Thank you for having me. It was a good chat.
Yeah, man.
We'll definitely chat again. Whether or not it's on stream or not, we'll chat more.
Yeah, that sounds great, man. I need to get Swarty in here sometime too. Maybe you could do a NGBS on ZLS.
Yeah, because then we can host it on 2 different channels.
Yeah. That'd be awesome. All right. Y'all, thanks for coming by. Thanks for stopping by. Awesome to see everyone in chat. We got Yuri tomorrow, Strumpflauner come in, Narwhal guy. We're going to have a good time. So see y'all tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.
Brandon.